There's so much I have to leave out of my journals that whole volumes of speculation have been written since my first edition about just what I left out. Some of them are flattering, some of them not so much. But the truth is that most of what was left out because it contained nothing of interest. In the immediate aftermath of the first game of ballyball, we cleaned up. That's it. My back wasn't too badly injured, of course, though the table had to be replaced, a fact Lisa apologized for repeatedly, and the respective teams were fairly well bonded. I gathered copious notes that would take me days to sort through, and I had to wait patiently while Captain Bonnie gave her crew directions. I will relay only one relevant part about what she had to say. She was a very active speaker, strutting around in front of the handful she chose from her crew members, and saying, "Now you know why I say we come here. There be fame and fortune to be had, and good mates what see things like we do. All them systems we went to, anyone ever have a time like this one?" "No!" was resoundingly shouted back. "You want to do it again tomorrow?" She demanded an answer in a long, trilling voice. "Aye," they answered with vigor and wagging tails. "Then when that'n—" She stopped in her tracks and pointed to me. "Tells you to jump. Even if it be off a plank, you jump. Your mates get out of hand, grab 'em by the tail and you drag 'em back to me, or you be as guilty as they. Anyone what makes trouble for anyone on this voyage, I strand on an asteroid with naught but your tail to chase. Anyone what don't report trouble, they can be on the next asteroid over. Any riddles to throw at me, lads?" "No, Captain," they shouted back, each of them clutching their souvenirs like treasured objects and awaiting their next orders. I noticed that the two security teams were watching the ship captain with mutual approval. I could only suppose that ship discipline had to be particularly strong for a ship to survive in the great gulf between systems. That wasn't much of a shock, really. It takes a rare breed of any species to make the leap into the darkness and sail the void. It was no place for the faint of heart, so it was no wonder that the ship captain with her strange blend of panache and charisma would be found in a place like that, or with a crew to match. "Then get your hides back on the shuttle. There be rum aplenty to be had when all is said and done. But for now we go back to the ship," she ordered, and the raggedy band disassembled and trotted toward the exit. A handful of humans were still in the stands watching the closeout of events from the day, and I couldn't blame them. The captain approached me and clapped me on the shoulder. "Translator off," she said, and I reflexively did the same. I hadn't spoken my native tongue since I got to Earth. There was no point. With only 2 lungs and their limited mouths, humans couldn't hope to manage my language. Dlamasan is unique. Our air sacs are asynchronous, meaning we can inhale and exhale at the same time. As such, when we expel gases for noise-making, such as language, we do it in a fashion that is, not to be too proud, but musical. You have to be able to sing a range of notes in an asynchronous fashion that blends all 3 air sacs at once. Our pitch can be very low or high enough that it is inaudible to humans, and similar to the whistling language spoken in some parts of the human world, we can be heard for kilometers away in the right situations. "Thank you for your support, researcher. Bailey," she said. I was rather surprised to hear someone so newly come to Earth expressing gratitude like a human, and had to remind myself that she'd met their species before. "You're welcome," I said. I had to look up at her up close. Even with her left eye swelling a little, she seemed to be in good spirits. "Right. Now that's out of the way. Listen, my sailors are good ones, but they're rowdy. If you can get some of those big ones to help mind them, I'd feel a lot better. Even better if you can set up somewhere for them to—" She paused and licked her chops. "Drink at least until they get their tolerance up. It'd be safer. They've been in the darkness a long time. They need to cut loose, but not too quickly, or they'll be like we were on that field." It was strange not to hear her piratish words, but even common Inkati does not allow for words to be used quite like that. Still, with the musical formalness of Inkati, she was precise in what she wanted, and I was able to quickly shift my thinking. "We can arrange an off-site place and arrange for more physical games here, things that will tire them out before they get too enthusiastic and too drunk." The strange thing about hearing and using the Inkati language, when including the English language, is that their concepts did not mold exceptionally well. They created hard stops to the steady flow of our words, as if we were unfamiliar with its use, even though it was quite literally ours. Words like drunk were blunt and harsh compared to our lyrical tongue. Though I never did tell her I believed this, I think that roughness of tongue is what Captain Bonnie liked. The thick, meaty swear words of human languages appealed to her outlandish nature. However, the more important thing to keep in mind here was why she chose to use Incanti to speak with me. She hadn't said it, but the long silence and the stiff tail told me plenty. Not everybody on her crew is without mud in their fur, I realized. Crime on Delamius is and has been fairly rare for a long time. I would not say our society is perfect, but we are so well ordered that few are out of work or devoid of purpose. Still, we do have a kind of criminal class, ones who gave in to their predatory natures. Most of that sort are routed early into military service, often given dangerous jobs, and few survive the void of space for more than a few decades. Captain Bonnie might have taken to her pirate persona for more reasons than mere personality and a desire for panache. I understood the subtext of her words in the context she spoke them, and I curled my tail to the left where she could see it. If no one here is harmed, it will be fine. But tell me the truth. The other ship lives? I admit, my inner coward quailed. Are you insane? Asking a question like that? Even asking it was almost the same as an accusation in Incanti. In our language, you seldom asked a question without a strong doubt about your belief being wrong. And from our perspective, that is how it is. If you are sure you're right, why are you asking? If I had been human, I would have been sweating. We don't have a means to laugh as humans do, but her tail went into a wild wagging mode that was so vigorous that her behind wiggled with it. Her entire body shivered as if she were deeply delighted, and her tongue lolled out when she cocked her head at me. I heard you were a coward, but that was a bold question. Yes, I told the truth. The ship is out there lazily making its way here, and unless their captain is spooked by some unmapped mode of space debris and gives it a wide berth, they will be here in a matter of weeks. I tried not to be rude by inhaling deeply, but I have always had a good nose, and I doubted she'd be able to hide any guilty pheromones from me. Not this close, at least. I detected none. Either she's a killer colder than the void, or she's telling the truth. I concluded and sighed. Fine. I acknowledged. I will speak to the embassy for you. I take it they're rather cross right now? I asked, and she nodded. For some reason they are miffed that I arrived here in place of a ship of the homeworld's official trade expedition. She said it as if she hadn't violated every kind of decency and protocol of our homeland, but I was sure she was only pretending to be ignorant. Ignoring her as soon as possible was likely the way the ambassador was expressing his displeasure, though I doubted he knew she had some less than silver reputation crew members, otherwise he would be more cautious. I'll take care of it. Just promise that everybody participates in my studies and that I can get a full report on the outside experiences with their guides, all the interviews I ask for, and that nobody will do anything to sabotage my efforts. And no starting trouble, I insisted. And if anything, far from being troubled or intimidated, Captain Bonnie seemed almost impressed, or even pleased. You drive a hard bargain, researcher, but I will meet your demands. Just keep that tidbit about my crew under your tail and sit on it. She replied, and I had to ask, why say it all? Aren't you worried I might speak up? I asked, though my tail wagged hard enough that it was obvious I wasn't angry. My curiosity was piqued. That was, after all, quite a bit to give away. She shrugged. It made sense. You must be at least something of an outlier yourself, the only Dlamisa to taste human blood. I learned a little about you. You're an outlier. Before now I might have bristled. Outlier was something of an insult among us, but as things were? Can I deny it? After everything? Do I even want to deny it? The truth was I didn't. I couldn't. I wouldn't. When I didn't, she went on, I look after that motley lot, but this is new. I would need an ally here, someone I could trust. And when you live in the void between stars, you learn that sometimes finding people to trust requires you to take a chance, and star leapers like us are used to the occasional blind chance. I'll do what I can. It was the best I could do. And Bonnie Red only nodded once, whirled around in what I can only describe as a pirouette with panache, and sauntered away like she was standing on a stage with the whole world, no, 2 worlds, as the audience. I wasn't sure if she knew about the 34th rule of human art, but I was sure she'd learn about it soon enough. As to how she'd feel about it, I never did have the courage to find out quite how she responded to that. Truth is, I did not want to know. But with Captain Bonnie gone, the rest was just wrap-up, clearing away debris, scheduling interviews with the different players, and getting schedules so more could play in the time ahead. William and Rebecca arrived without Michael, and were roundly congratulating me on an unexpected kind of success, chattering away and promising, "We had no idea that is what she was up to." Meanwhile, Fauve had set herself off to one side with that same cat who swallowed the canary expression on her face that absolutely guaranteed that her parents were telling the truth. William, ever the worrier, asked, "Is there any chance that this has made things harder for you? Anything we need to do?" I shook my head and pointed down toward my wagging tail. "No. This may make for some interesting variables, but I can always arrange for smaller private games without all the fanfare as an additional control. I can't see how this would pose a serious problem." While I said that, I had made another mental note to add the soldier-class Dlamacans from the night at the park and their human counterparts to closer study. Bosun and Byron's bond might be far more common than I thought, and I couldn't help but think, I have so much more to learn. I was right, of course, at least as far as the experiment went, and most of the problems it did eventually cause weren't my problems, or problems for my humans, so I was able to sleep soundly while they went on later. Bosun and Byron I did not need to schedule interviews with. I lived with them, more or less, so it was doable at my leisure, but even so, neither was willing to put off telling me how much fun they had. "I haven't had a game like that since high school," Byron enthused. His big squared-off head was smothered in green grass stains, and a dark bruise was forming on his cheek. I made a mental note to add helmets as part of the game. He was breathing hard still. He and Bosun did what they could to hold each other up. "And I've never had a workout like that," the giant Dlamacen security officer enthused. "The last time I had fun, like that?" His tongue lolled out. "Alcohol was involved, and it was while we were doing this." "I'm glad you both had fun," I said sincerely, "but please keep in mind that this is about more than fun, at least for me." They bowed their heads in a show of deference that surprised me. Up till then, I honestly wasn't too sure whether they actually liked me or not, foolish as that sounds. After all, we hadn't done anything truly social together outside of the limited familial or work-related interactions. But I suppose they did, which felt pretty good, I must say. Humans have a saying, "Tell me who your friends are, and I will tell you who you are." There is a great deal of truth to that. Looking back on Wolfbeard, I recalled the nasty, hateful, violent fantasy-loving figures that dominated his life and called him friend, and he was not so different. Looking at William and Rebecca, Latunde was a good man with his own business, and their friends, those few I knew, would put themselves out for him, such as Lisa. Looking at Fauve, who despite having few friends, those she did were people who wanted to build, not destroy. So realizing that those two had a favorable opinion of me, well, their character said something to me of how they saw my own. It was something I knew I'd have to live up to. "So what now?" Bosun asked. I looked at my humans and said, "After we're done here? Home. That is, after all, where I really wanted to be.